hear that question, I think that's probably what he's asking, because I would have thought of that in the past as well. I mean, when you're talking about pardons and you're talking about it in the way that you are, does that translate to people that maybe not of the same political stripe as
Sure.
you and I? Do they hear it the same?
I had an audience at the Country Club of York, which is very conservative, very white, skews very old. And I introduced them to a woman named Naomi Blunt, who, an African-American woman, served 38 years in prison. And in 1985, she was actually forensically exonerated of causing any death or harm in the case that ultimately convicted. Yet she languished in prison for all those years, and was rejected under my predecessor's leadership. But we actually got her out, and we actually hired her to help women get their applications in. And I introduced her, and I was like, "This is the face of who is doing life in prison." And they were just like, "Really?" Like, it was this sweet 69-year-old woman. And it's like, well, that's not what I expected. Everyone assumes that they're like Hannibal Lecter if you're in prison for these kind of things. And Naomi actually didn't contribute to any of that. And that's what I mean by, we should know exactly who's in our prison. If we are going to mete out the ultimate punishment, and that is death by incarceration, we better be damn sure that it's appropriate for these folks to be in there. And to me, that's the essence of justice. And that, I think, resonates with conservative people as well too, where it's like, look, if you're Hannibal Lecter, or you are the Tree of Life, you mentioned Pittsburgh, Tree of Life shooter, Naomi Blunt should not serve the same sentence as the Tree of Life shooter. And that's exactly what these folks are queued up to do. And of course, there are people that may not agree with me, and if I don't have their vote as a result of that, I would rather have people know where I come down on. But it's like, forgiveness and redemption underpins virtually every one of the major world religions. And I think mercy must be a partner to justice. And full justice requires an avenue for mercy. And that, to me, is the best part of my job, quite frankly.
So that kind of ties into, because I will go out on a limb and say your signature issue, if you were to have one, would be legalization of marijuana.
Sure.
That is what I think a lot of people might recognize you by, associate with you. And I think that has so many different facets. One, the types of people that would benefit from either medical marijuana legalization, but also people that are in jail for offenses like that. So talk about how that topic goes together with justice, racial justice, and then you can get into revenue and all the positive things that could do.
Well, really, really easily, it's just, it's a plant. If you can grow it with your tomatoes, chances are you shouldn't be criminalizing it the way we have. We as a nation did not tolerate prohibition of alcohol, but yet we have tolerated all these years prohibition of a plant that has no known overdose deaths and that is not addictive. In fact, if anything, if it's a gateway drug, it's a gateway away from more dangerous and hard and addictive drugs like opiates. So the bottom line is that it is grossly disproportionately impactful on people in communities of color in terms of the criminalization of it. And it is something that is in the shadows, that is criminality. It creates revenue for drug cartels, and it doesn't benefit Pennsylvania right now. There's a thriving cannabis market in Pennsylvania right now. Why shouldn't we make it legal? So from my perspective, the fact that there are people in prison, there are people with records that have been trashed, when in New Jersey, this is legal. Like, you could literally have 1 foot in Pennsylvania and 1 foot in New Jersey, and one of you could have as much legal marijuana as you want, and the other foot would be a criminal and maybe even a felon when growing at home. It doesn't make any sense. And then when you talk about the revenue, billions, you talk about the jobs, tens of thousands of unsubsidized jobs. You talk about the freedom to say, you know what, I don't judge people for whatever it takes to help take the edge off or get on by. If that's having a glass of wine at the end of the day, if that is whatever that is, like, marijuana needs to be part of that portfolio that we trust adults 21 years or older to partake in, and they should be free of impurities, danger, illegality, and other externalities that's associated with illegal cannabis. And there's so much benefit conferred on the state as a whole when we do that. When South Dakota South Dakota, one of this nation's most conservative states,
Mhm.
voted by 10 points, 45 to 55 in favor of legal weed. If you're to the right of South Dakota on any topic, that should be kind of like, whoa, we need to revisit us because that's not where we are as Pennsylvania for sure. And I know, because I went to every county, that around 70% of us want it, and at about another 10% are, yeah, okay, fine, if it happens, whatever. And then there's a hardcore 15, maybe 20%, I just dub them like reefer madness, that believe that the world will spin off its axis if we allow people to sip a little weed when they, to take the edge off after a long day.
Yeah, well said. I feel like there's a couple issues that are, I don't even know why we're still talking about them, if I'm honest with you. There's gun control. That is a hugely popular topic. There is obviously legalizing weed. But a lot of these things have become identity politics. So where do you fall? Like, I've heard you dubbed like a blue collar liberal. What do you think of labels like that? What do you think of appeal across the state? Because you've obviously run a statewide race before. What do you think about going into it like this new era, post-Trump, everything?
I've always been about the truth, and I've always been about what's fair. Now, and when I say, let's take, like, I think one of those why are we arguing issues is also a living wage. Now, like, Pennsylvania's living wage is $7.25 an hour. How the hell does anybody come close to even paying for their own food for a family, let alone a roof, let alone, why do we pretend that that's anywhere close to dignified? It's in fact, it's dangerous. It's dangerous to have people in that deep of in poverty. And let's say $9 an hour, $10 an hour. What's $11 an hour minimum wage? Okay, I'll spell it out for you. That's $22,000 a year. How can a single mother with one or two kids get by on $22,000 a year? That's offensive. And what is $15 an hour? $15 an hour is $31,000 a year, And, is that wealthy? Are you getting, rich? No, that's the basic minimum threshold of dignity that we in this country should not tolerate anything less than that, and to pretend otherwise is, that's the truth. And I say to voters, if you're okay with a single mother working for $7.25 an hour, $8.50 or whatever, then don't vote for me, because that is un-American. That is, if all work has dignity, and all work does have dignity, in my opinion, then every paycheck must have dignity. And if you go into a casino, the odds are against you, but you have a chance to win. That's the whole premise. But when you have a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, the odds are you're guaranteed to lose. You could do everything right. You could work 2,000 hours a year, and you're still going to be impoverished, chaotic, desperate. There won't be a moment where you don't have to worry about even the most basic things. And that, to me, is not a compassionate culture or society that I very much would want to be a part of, a member of, and promote.
Absolutely.
I wish there is an emoji or something that I can do to like ball because this is everything that you said here, it resonates with me because in our show, we not just trying to raise awareness, but to discuss and open people's eyes to those issues. And it bothers me when I hear so many people or read their comments and they're raising the minimum wages as they feel as if we raise the minimum wages is going to take away from them. People think it's like a pie. Anytime we cut and we give someone in need, it takes away from them. And that's not how it works. Also, the homelessness. A lot of people don't think we have homelessness issue in Pennsylvania. We do. And they're not lazy people, as many people say, but most of them are people working 40 hours or more, but they cannot meet the minimum requirement. My first pay was $6.50. That was in 2001. I worked at the daycare. And, to think that there are still people who are making $7, it just blew my mind. This is 20 years ago. I start with the $6.50.
It breaks my heart. There's nearly 100,000 Pennsylvanians at least that are working for $7.25 an hour, you know?
And
like,
a big part of those are women, and a big part of those are moms.
You know, that's enough to fill Beaver Stadium at Penn State, you know? Think about all the people that are connected to those people and the communities, and how desperate those people must be every single day. And I'm not talking about a 16-year-old that lives at home with his or her parents and that kind of thing. I'm talking about, to Gisele's point, single mothers that, and also these are the folks that are taking care of our elderly, our children, you know, making our lives more convenient, making it more comfortable. Why wouldn't we want them to have a bare minimum level of stability and economic fairness? And, you know, we don't worry about how much a CEO makes, but we sure as hell spend a lot of time worrying that $31,000 a year, you know, busting your tail for full time is too much. For what? Too much to do what? Other than just live and basically keep a roof over your head and some food on the table. You know, I don't understand it. And if that is something that you are offended by or disagree, then there's another party for you, or there's another candidate. But I'm always going to tell what I know and believe to be the truth. And that is, all work has dignity, all paychecks must have dignity.